Welcome to Defeating Type 2 Diabetes Worldwide, the podcast where hope meets action and transformation becomes reality. Type 2 diabetes is the world's most common non-communicable disease, affecting millions of people across the globe. But here's what matters most. It can be defeated. Each week, I'll share practical steps, proven science, and inspiring real-life stories showing how lifestyle changes can manage, reverse, and even defeat type 2 diabetes. Whether you call it managed, reversed, cured, or defeated, the result is the same. Freedom! If you're ready to ask honest questions, discover real answers, and learn how small changes create powerful results, you're in exactly the right place. I'm Mystrom, and I'll be your host for this episode of Defeating Type 2 Diabetes Worldwide. Few, if any, diseases are as patient-controlled as type 1 diabetes and as patient-solvable as type 2 diabetes. That's why it's so important for you and your loved ones to understand this disease. If you're a newly diagnosed diabetic, don't view the diagnosis as a sentence to a shorter life, but as an opportunity to live a longer, healthier, more enjoyable life. Your doctor can guide you, but you're in control. Your doctor can diagnose, explain, and get you on the right path, but he or she isn't living with diabetes daily like you are. By listening to these podcasts and applying what you learn, you'll be on your way to a healthier life. And within 2 months, you can normalize your blood glucose, feel better, and look better. What you'll learn in these podcasts: by testing my blood sugar 6, 8, or even 10 or more times a day for more than 40 years, I've learned what foods require the least amount of insulin and therefore contribute to weight loss and lower blood sugars. Conversely, I've learned which foods trigger the most insulin demand and therefore are the biggest contributors to weight gain and blood sugar increases. It's taken me more than 40 years to learn which foods to maximize, which foods to moderate, and which foods to minimize. You will learn which foods to eat and when to eat them by listening to these podcasts. You'll also understand the simple science of weight loss. You'll understand why insulin is called the stop-and-go light of weight loss and weight gain. You'll know which foods will overwork your pancreas and prevent it from being able to produce enough insulin to normalize your blood sugars. You'll know which foods will give your pancreas the relief it needs to produce sufficient insulin to normalize your blood sugars. You'll know how it feels to be free of the fear of the severe complications that face type 2 diabetics. And finally, you'll know how it feels to be healthy again. Activity and exercise. Is your eating lifestyle the whole story? No. Activity and exercise also play a role. But what you put into your body is more important than how you burn it. I'll explain and defend that statement later. Activity and exercise are important to good health, good appearance, and healthy longevity. By testing my blood sugar regularly after activities and after exercise, I have learned which activities and exercises are best, and how much you should do to control your blood sugar and your weight most effectively. You'll also learn why it's important to toss the old, discouraging exercise adage of no pain, no gain into the trash can of bad advice. Don't cringe when I say exercise. This is not a serious bodybuilding regimen. It's a program for people 35 and older, or for those who may never have been in a health club or gym and who aren't as active as they used to be. You'll learn how simple changes in your activity and exercise patterns will change your life. These simple, smart lifestyle changes will improve your health, appearance, outlook, and longevity. Knowing the impact of the foods you eat on your blood sugar level is so very important, not only for type 2 diabetics, but also for pre-diabetics, borderline diabetics, and anyone who wants to lose weight. Eating the wrong foods will raise your blood sugar too fast and too much and result in significant weight gain. Conversely, eating the right foods will lower blood sugar, reduce insulin demand, and help you lose weight. For type 2 diabetics, embracing the advice will likely eliminate all their symptoms of diabetes. Some may call that curing your type 2 diabetes, others may call it reversing type 2 diabetes, but whatever you call it, you will reduce or eliminate the devastating complications of diabetes. You will feel better, look better, be slimmer, and be healthier. This podcast is your jumpstart to a healthier life. Understanding type 2 diabetes from a patient's point of view. Understanding diabetes starts with understanding how the food you eat is converted to energy for your body to use in everyday activities. Most descriptions of diabetes are, of course, written by researchers or doctors, many of whom have in-depth knowledge of the body's chemistry, structural biology, and physiology. To be as precise as possible, many of their descriptions get too complicated for the typical diabetic, especially a newly diagnosed diabetic, to understand. It's my goal to be as clear and understandable as possible as I try to give each of you the knowledge you need to deal with type 2 diabetes. prediabetes, and weight loss. As a 53-year type 1 diabetic, I've spent the last 40 years, since self-testing has been available, working to understand the impact of food and activity on blood sugar and weight. For 3 years, I structured my research, created detailed charts of the impact of foods and food combinations, and graphed the results. This testing brings a unique, never-before-done answer to America's commonly asked health question: what should I eat to reverse or avoid type 2 diabetes? As a starting point, you need to understand what happens when a type 2 diabetic eats or drinks for energy and nourishment. When a type 2 diabetic eats food, some of that food is absorbed through the stomach walls and enters into the bloodstream as glucose. When the glucose starts entering the bloodstream, it triggers a rise in blood sugar. As the blood sugar begins to rise, the pancreas gets a signal to start producing insulin. When glucose enters the bloodstream of a type 2 diabetic, the pancreas says, metaphorically, "I've been working too hard trying to produce the insulin needed for all the glucose you've been creating. I'm tired, and I can't produce all the insulin you need, but I will produce what I can and hope it helps." Implicit in this message is that if the type 2 diabetic will reduce the amount of glucose in the bloodstream, it will reduce the demand for insulin, and the pancreas will be able to produce sufficient insulin to meet that demand. This is essentially the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. In a type 1 diabetic, no insulin is produced. In a type 2 diabetic, the pancreas is producing some insulin, but not enough to get all the glucose out of the bloodstream and into the cells that need the glucose for energy, nourishment, and storage. The result is that blood glucose is often above normal, and it's that higher than normal blood sugar that causes the terrible complications that uncontrolled type 2 diabetes get. But you'll learn in my future podcast that type 2 diabetes is avoidable and reversible. This insufficiency of insulin results from eating too much of the wrong foods combined with a relatively sedentary lifestyle and increasing age. Most likely it's some combination of these characteristics, but getting older and heavier is the most common journey to type 2 diabetes. We can't do much about getting older, in fact. That's better than the alternative. But these podcasts will show you exactly how to ease the burden on your pancreas and lose weight. In the early stages of medical distinction between the two types of diabetes, I wish the term used to describe type 2 diabetics who use insulin had been established as insulin-assisted, not insulin-dependent. As a type 2 diabetic, you may need that insulin assistance now, but if you can make some key changes in your eating lifestyle, you won't need that assistance from either insulin or oral medication in the future. These podcasts will show you what changes you need to make and how to make those changes. In addition to type 2 diabetics and borderline diabetics, the third group of people who will benefit greatly from these podcasts are those folks who are overweight. Even though you may have no symptoms of diabetes, you are much more likely to get diabetes than those who are not overweight. Although a number of issues influence the likelihood of someone getting type 2 diabetes, no one characteristic is more closely related to type 2 diabetes than excessive weight. The most common estimate is that about 80% of type 2 diabetics are overweight or obese. When you combine that statistic with the Center for Disease Control's estimate that about 1/3 of Americans are obese and another 1/3 are just overweight, you can understand the huge increases in type 2 diabetes. To cure or reverse type 2 diabetes, to assure your long-term good health, to lose weight, or to avoid getting type 2 diabetes in the first place, you need an understanding of the disease, a desire to be healthy, a positive attitude, and knowledge of what foods you should be eating. Subsequent podcasts will give you an understanding of foods that will change your life. But before we get to that information, I need to provide a little more motivation for you to make healthy changes. This next episode will highlight some problems you may face if you don't keep your blood sugar and weight under control. But if you do control or reverse type 2 diabetes, you can look forward to a longer, healthier, and happier life as so many others are now experiencing. I'm Mystrom, and you've been listening to Defeating Type 2 Diabetes Worldwide.